I'm Matt Carey, documentary editor at Deadline.com. Welcome to the Deadline studio at Sundance. I'm here with Don Porter, who is the director of Luther, Never Too Much. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Happy Sundance to you.
Happy
I know
Sundance
you've been here
indeed.
before. The Luther of the title, of course, is the great Luther Vandross, one of the greatest singers of all time. And this you're really exploring this extraordinary talent that was Luther Vandross and his life, his ups, his downs, and but certainly his artistic triumphs.
Yeah, I was really surprised to learn that there had never been a full-length treatment, film about Luther Vandross. And because he is, it's a song track to like so many people's lives. It's the favorite wedding song, working with Sony, I had kind of a documentary dream because we had, first of all the music. We knew we could get all the music. But we
That's
also
key.
had, that's key, that's right, the artist, musical artist. But, we also had his rehearsal footage. We had his papers. So he would sketch those costumes for his shows as a young kid, like a young guy. And then to see the costumes go from sketch to he commissioned the seamstress to actually being on stage. So that kind of, exposition, that's kind of what filmmakers, that's what we live for, is being able to bring all that to the surface.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much that I certainly learned about Luther. I heard him in concert with Anita Baker around 1990 or so in Atlanta, which was certainly a memorable tour that they did. I think, well, I wanted to ask you if you feel like in certain respects he's underappreciated. I think probably appreciated widely as a vocalist, but not understood that what a songwriter he was.
That the kind of bringing to the surface Luther's many talents. That was definitely a goal of mine. But it was also something I had to learn as I kind of dug into the film. So what a accomplished songwriter he was, an arranger, a band leader, essentially. So, all of that. And then seeing how intentional he was around his craft, around choosing songs that suited him. I loved, we do a big section on covers that he did. And there's, one of my favorite scenes is that he does a cover of Superstar by the Carpenters. And one of his, band, members says, "The Carpenters? What, I don't got to see how this is going to go." And then when you hear the song, it both honors the original, but it also brings what he does to it. And I think that, that's what's so interesting, engaging, and important about art, that we could go, that Luther Vandross and Karen Carpenter could do justice to the same song and be in conversation with each other. And so, when I'm making projects, I do a lot of social justice things. I'm thinking about the ways that we're connected. And so there's a lot that Luther is connecting with.
Yes, and he had intersections with some of the greatest figures in rock and pop, and Bette Midler and Roberta Flack. And some people know about David Bowie. That's an important chapter in that, where he was a backup singer for Bowie, but more than a backup singer, again, the arranging ability, and Bowie was smart enough to realize, wait a minute, what this guy is doing, I need to incorporate. I need that on my album.
I'm so glad you're highlighting that, and that is standing out. There's often a tough conversation about white artists sampling or borrowing from black artists, and David Bowie is certainly an example of a person who not only gave credit but lifted up. He, exactly as you just said, he saw something in Luther. So Luther Vandross was there as a tag-along friend. He starts saying, "Young Americans." Bowie hears that, and Bowie's an artist. He's like, "I love that." If you look on, and we highlight this in the film, Luther arranges the entire album with David Bowie as a 20-something-year-old kid. Bowie didn't have to do that. And then he takes Luther on tour with him. And so when you see the generosity of an artist like David Bowie, and you think about that kind of combination of sounds, that is what music and art is all about. Like, these artists they're responding to what kind of inspires them. And I feel like that's kind of something we could all think about. We're thinking a lot about our differences, and these artists they're showing us like how we're the same.
Yeah, it makes me think of Paul Simon, parenthetically, of someone who just collaborates in wonderful ways with artists from around the world, be they in Brazil, South Africa, which is just testament to, again, music being able to cross those boundaries, and the true artists recognize talent and original ideas and contributions that are going to enhance what they're doing. Certainly, one of the things that's very surprising was for me of Luther as a singer of jingles, Juicy Fruit, Miller Time. I mean, that's amazing. And he
Yep.
was so
When it's
successful.
time to relax. Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
Low and let it be low and
Oh, Lone Brow.
brow.
Love the Lone Brow.
Right? There's nothing like the roller coaster ride. There's nothing, like juicy fruit gum. Yeah, I loved that section. And one of the things about Luther Vandross is he's kind of like Mr. Magoo, if you like, like he's everywhere.
Mm,
Starting with Bowie, singing behind Roberta Flack, he backed up Carly Simon, Barbara Streisand. Like, so there were too many artists for us to include,
yeah.
or else it just would have been it wouldn't have served the movie. But going from jingles and then doing his own music, but also being, collaborating with Nile Rodgers and Chic.
Mm,
So Luther is a part of disco. When you think of Luther Vandross, you don't think of disco, and yet there he is. His vocals are on all that music. So that was really fun for me to just see everywhere he was that we didn't know. We weren't kind of focused on that, and it shows you just like his evolution as an artist and a person, and it also shows you, to me, it makes me wonder, like, what else did I know about our
mm,
musical history? About like who else is contributing. And so, other filmmakers will come and will find those
mm.
stories to share.
Yeah, and I think with Luther, there's an interesting sort of paradox almost that I found him to be so personable and charming, um, and a really beautiful personality. He was quite private, I guess you would say. He was not private about his quest for love, if you will,
Right.
but he was private about the specifics of his romantic life, and there certainly speculation about his sexuality. I wonder, as a filmmaker, you don't want to ignore that, but it's all about how do you incorporate that into the story without maybe putting the cart before the horse, if you will.
Yeah, I think that was something we worked really hard on. You don't want to be salacious. You don't want to be sensational about something so important as somebody's, sexuality, their personal life. You want to respect their choices and how they wanted to live their lives. Like we all want to be respected, and yet we're in 2024. I'm so happy that like so many more people are not homophobic any longer. It's hard for us to remember what it was like for artists in the 90s when AIDS is ravaging the country, when there's so much discrimination already. And so it's hard for us now to kind of think of like how anybody, we're out and proud. And that's mercifully, thankfully, thank goodness, that's the society we're living in. And that wasn't the case for him. So, where we kind of, there's speculation. I decided like, and a lot of the movie is I wanted Luther to tell his own story as much as possible. So that's why it was such a gift to have all this archival. And so I was like, we're going to let Luther have the last word. But the last thing I want to do is have anybody think I'm homophobic. So it was a struggle, to not um, kind of go beyond where he wanted to go. So we let people who loved him talk
Mm,
about his struggles. It's one of the many, many, many reasons we wish Luther Vandross was alive today. Like, what would he make of our world? You know?
and in that sense, what would you ask him if you could talk with
Oh
Luther?
gosh. I mean, I feel like I know him right
Mm,
now. So like when you make a film like this, what people don't always think about in documentaries, the editing. We do it over and over and over. We are swimming in their lives. So I think I would want to know more about like how he chose his songs. I would want to know all of that. I would want to know kind of if he felt the same way, if he felt like he, could be more open, or if he didn't want to be more open. There are still so many people who are like, my personal life is not what I choose to share.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's really important to have respect for people. And so, I wondered if he would feel differently today.
Your film does not have distribution, so you're coming into Sundance. It's
Just
very
put that big old
exciting.
for sale sign up.
For
So this
sale?
is my first time doing this. So, every other
Because you were
film.
with ABC for a long
Hmm.
time, and you've brought films to many major platforms.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to have a problem. Easy for me to
Oh,
say.
not from your lips to,
But this is such a remarkable story that's told, and I mean, it really brought tears to my eyes,
yay.
and
Say that to the camera. Say
all
Matt
right,
Carey
brought
cried.
tears to
Did
my eyes,
you hear that,
folks.
everybody?
Yeah, and for instance, that he lost his father when Luther was only 8. And
Yeah.
then, towards the end of his life, towards the end of Luther's life, he writes that beautiful song about his
Yeah.
father that, man, it just gives me chills.
Yeah. And what? I've worked with the same graphic designer a lot. Her name is Molly Schwartz. And when I first started this movie, I really went back to like first principles. I was reading all of Luther's lyrics. I was like, what are you trying to tell us? What are you saying with this song? So, kind of we have a portion in the film where that's like Molly's beautiful handwriting, where she's writing out those lyrics so that you can really focus on what he was thinking, what was his love letter to his father. And that story is so important to him. A lot of artists have kind of like struggles and tough coming ups, and Luther had a happy life, and he had parents who loved him and who loved each other, and what they gave to him was a confidence that he could, think about when he's growing up. He's grown up in the 60s. The civil rights movement is raging. The Black Panthers are around. Like, what a confusing time for a kid to be in. Where's my place? And his parents gave him some grounding. So for him to have his most successful song be kind of about his love for his father, we just really felt like that was a beautiful way to acknowledge what he was trying to tell us, what he's still telling us.
Well, it's an incredible film, and I know audiences are going to get to see it probably sooner rather than later. We will see, and we wish you best of luck with those negotiations. Don Porter, director of Luther, Never Too Much.
Never too much, yes.
Never too much.
Never too much, never too much.